Kenneth Burke suggests that language is a kind of merger and division. It's a taking apart and it's a bringing together. Now, I want to address a little bit of Burke, and then I also want to talk about Bateson and Korzybski to help clarify some of the things I've been suggesting about language, and in particular, the way that language itself can't be located within the materiality of the physical world of the senses. And so I think one of the ways to really get at this is to get at this issue of merger and division by some concrete examples. So right here I have two pencils, and I thought I would just show those here. Now, if I say what are the similarities between these two pencils, what we find is a process whereby we abstract out a quality from each item, and then we categorically identify both items as having that quality. So I say, well, both of them are yellow, both of them are cylindrical, both of them are a certain length. And in doing that, we seem to identify by a process of abstraction, right? Korzybski was very good at identifying this process of abstraction through which categories are formed. And notice here, when we do that, when we do abstract out a quality from a particular instantiation of it, we get the sense that that quality or that essence or that form is somehow outside of space and time. Well, this is part of the property of language. This is what Heidegger called the copula of is. It gives an exhibitive disparting, right? It takes apart and then is in a showing or revealing, reveals how things belong together. I say the pencil is yellow. Yellow is released from this, and somehow I identify yellow as a common quality to these two items. Okay, I think that's an easy one. I think the more difficult one is to go to Bateson's work. Bateson suggests that we need to understand the nature of information. Information is a difference that makes a difference. Now, for Bateson, understanding the way that differences work is as important or even more important than the question of abstraction and the question of identifying qualities or similarities. And you know, somebody might say, and I think this is right to say, that language itself is actually nothing but, or it's the collection of similarities and differences. It's the ability to recognize differences within similarities and similarities within differences. If you take language, whether it's at the level of phonemes or at the level of words, or take the letter of letters, if you go to literacy, all of these, what you find is combinations of similarity and of difference. Now, what's so fascinating about all of this issue here is that, as I said, when we're trying to identify similarities, we get at least an illusion. The illusion that abstraction creates is that there are these forms, these kind of qualities, essences like beauty or yellowness, something like this, and those fool us into trying to look for abstract forms in the places where they seem to be, right? We say, okay, that's where it is. When we move to the question of difference, I think this was Bateson's point, the issue is much more complicated, right? So let's go back to these pencils. If I were to say to you right now, where is the difference between them? Again, try to understand the question. This is not an ill-conceived question. Where is the difference between them? If you start to get at the question of where are differences, we start to see that the issue of difference is much more complicated than the question of identifying commonalities through abstraction. Yeah, right? So if I take these two pencils and I say, okay, this one is different than this one, right? Yeah, well, someone might say, well, yeah, this one is at one place and this one is at another place. Well, that's true. This pencil is at one place and this pencil is another place. But where is the difference? Is it in the one pencil? Is it in the other? If you say it's in the relation, well, you can't get at the relation independent of people. People are part of the way that relations become the relations that they are. We're embedded within the relations. Now, I'm giving, again, what's maybe a very complex argument here about the nature of similarities and differences and how that relates to language. I think somebody who really wants to understand language, who really wants to get at what language is, they're going to have to deal with the degree to which language deals in differences. And differences can't be located within the one item or the other. This is why when we try to get at where are words, part of the problem is very vexing because a word is partly a bunch of differences, and those differences aren't locatable to any particular space and time. I hope that that makes sense, and I do hope that people who are trying to get a better understanding of the nature of language and the complexities of language are really appreciating how, as we study the nature of language, as we try to understand all of its complexities, we start to realize that humans are spiritual beings. We live in the real but immaterial world of relations. We're not making them up, but they're not here independent of people. To be human is to be partly other than here and now. Okay, I hope that, again, some of that makes sense.